What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. Today I'm going to be talking about basically the long-range meta for the current Season 4 Reloaded. So we're going to talk about all the different guns that I think kind of fit into the meta, and I'll kind of try to rank them and give you reasons why certain ones are better at different things. As always, if you guys like the content, consider dropping that sub. We're trying to hit 200,000 in about 3 weeks. Probably not going to quite get there, but hey, gotta at least set big goals. So that'd be pretty awesome. The 1-year channel anniversary is like August 13th, so I think that would be awesome to hit 200,000 by then. But before we jump into this, we've got an ad today from Legionfarm, so we'll go through that, and then we will jump into what I think about the long-range meta. Today's video is sponsored by Legionfarm. So Legionfarm is an esports coaching website. Basically, they have 2 games right now. They have Warzone, they have Apex Legends. Obviously, we're going to focus on Warzone. So this is their website here in the background. It's pretty simple. You just come on here and you can find a pro to play with, and all these pros are just incredible players. 6.5 KD, 21% win rate, 5.35 KD, 45% win rate. Super simple. You just pick your pro. They have 3 different options. You can do coaching, fun, or result. Obviously, coaching is going to be dedicated to the pro that you're playing with. It's going to be trying to teach you how to improve, teach you everything they know about the game. Fun is just going to be dedicated to having a good time playing. Obviously, I mean that's what it would be considered, just being fun. You can play however you want with fun. Just talk to your pro and see what they want to do, see what you want to do, and do whatever you want. And then result, obviously, is playing for the win, basically. So they're going to be doing everything they can to win you the game. And in doing that, you're obviously also going to learn a ton about just how to play the game in general. So I can speak from personal experience that playing with people who are the best at what they do is essentially the fastest way you can get better at something. You'll just learn so much from watching these people play at the skill level they are, just putting yourself in that position to watch and understand, and actually in this case be directly coached on how to get better. That's really the best way to get better at something, not just Warzone, but anything in life. So actually using this service is super simple. The first time you get on here, they'll have you select a game, log in. When you log in the first time, you'll select what platform you're on, whether it's PC, PlayStation, Xbox, and where you are in the world as well. And the reason they do that is because they want to pair you up with somebody that's on the same platform ideally, and in a nearby location for ping reasons and things like that. You can select what level of pro you want. These have different costs. Basically, it's how experienced they are, how long they've been on the platform, things like that. I actually got the chance to try this service out before I worked with Legionfarm, and I got to play with Yagis. He was a 4.7 KD player from Turkey. He was a blast to play with, great comms. He actually taught me some things, even though I have 50 days playtime. So obviously, no matter what skill level you are, you can always improve. And something I should mention about this service is it's completely on demand, so it doesn't matter what time of day it is or where you are in the world. They always have people that are ready to play with you that are just fantastic players. There's 9 people here recommended for me right now at 2 a.m. in San Diego. So these people all have 5 KDs. It's a really cool service, and genuinely this is probably the best way to get better at Warzone, is to play with people that are better than you and learn from them. So if you're interested in that, remember promo code TrueGameData. I will link the special promo code down below in the video description, as well as a pinned comment. And thank you, Legionfarm, for sponsoring this video. All right, so I'm going to really quickly go through the guns and talk about some guns that I think some people might think would be viable that I don't think are very viable right now. So I'm not going to include them in the TTK charts. So the AMAX has been hit with quite a few nerfs, and I just think there's some better options out there right now. FAL is still really good. It's just really hard to use because it's single shot. What's some other ones that I'm not going to include? So the Grow's in a better spot after the buffs in this patch, and everything else getting nerfed. It made it a lot better. So the Grow's not a terrible choice. The Groza's okay now that it had the recoil smoothed out, so that's worth including. And then, let's see, Scar still is really limited by that mag size. Kilo is actually still really good out to that 80 meters until that third drop-off. This is something that I think they should tweak, because it doesn't really make a lot of sense to me that this is basically the only AR now that has that third drop-off. So I don't understand why they did that. M13, there's just better options, unfortunately. I mean, I love the M13. I used to run it all the time. I just really think there's better options out there, so I'm not going to include it. QBZ is actually in a pretty good spot as well, so we're going to include that. That's kind of a surprise because QBZ was really bad before. Ram 7 for me just has too much recoil for range. It still has great TTKs, so if you're good with the Ram at longer ranges, go for it by all means. It is a good gun, has good numbers. I just can't use it, so I'm not going to include it in my comparison. XM4 got hit by a pretty bad nerf in this patch for some reason. I don't really know why, but I think it's still included in my list of things to compare. So the Bruin, Bruin has good TTKs. It's still pretty accurate, but it is an LMG, so it does have really poor handling, which isn't great. The Finn is still one of the most accurate guns in the game, and it has okay TTKs, not great, but it's just really accurate. Finn with adverse barrels actually has some of the fastest TTKs in the game with chest shots. So if you want to try to master that, that would be a fun gun to use there. MG82 is actually in a good spot now, so we're going to include that. PKM has great TTKs and always has, but it's just so slow, and the reload time is so bad. I just don't really see a reason to use it over some other options, so that's why it's not going to be included. I've got the Stoner on the list. I don't have the SA87 on there just because it's kind of, again, it's an LMG. It's kind of chunky and slow, and there's just some other options that have similar TTKs but are ARs, so they have better mobility and things like that. So I don't really see that being it's okay. I mean, you could use it. I don't see it being a top tier gun though. And then SMGs, surprisingly, we're going to actually still include the Milano. But yeah, I just briefly wanted to cover those guns and the ones that I don't think are going to make the cut. So people don't ask about it, because if I don't include a gun, everyone's always like, why didn't you include this gun? So I just briefly wanted to try to cover most of the guns I'll get asked about. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to disable some of these on the chart so you can see specifically in comparison to what I think are the two best right now. So the two best long-range guns right now, I think, are the C58 and the FARA. And that's for a combination of reasons. So I'm going to disable everything except the C58 and FARA. We're on chest shots right now. You can see the FARA actually has better TTKs than C58 now. They nerfed the C58 pretty hard in this last patch, so it's not nearly as crazy as it was before, but it's still insanely good because it has such low recoil, low visual recoil, and that 4X gives it it's just an absolute beam with the 4X. And because the 4X has so much zoom, it kind of reminds me a little bit of like the M16 meta, back when the Axial Arms 3X was like a sniper scope with the M16. You basically have a sniper scope on your C58 with very low recoil and decent TTKs. So it reminds me a lot of the M16 meta in that way. But the FARA has a little bit better numbers, but you don't get to use that 4X that helps with recoil as much. You can still use the 4X, but it just won't help as much as it does on the C58. But overall, the FARA is probably a little bit better in like mid-range, just because it has better TTKs, and mid-range it already has very low recoil. So they're both great options. C58 is probably better for longer ranges. FARA is a little better up close. But obviously the FARA has a long reload time and not great ADS times. With the C58, you can get away with using the 45 round mag just because the damage per mag is so high because it has such a low fire rate. So that's one of the benefits of the C58. So let's compare first to the Milano. So if we had the Milano in there, Milano actually wins in TTK up close by quite a bit. I don't know why this chart is bugging out like this. Milano is winning up close, and then because of bullet travel time, it loses out at range. But if you turn that off, I have to disable all of these again, but turn that off and you'll see that the Milano actually has amazing TTKs all the way out. It's faster than the FARA up close. The FARA will win out from 21 meters to 27 meters, and then past that, the Milano is actually going to tie it again. So it's pretty crazy. It's really strange. Obviously, the Milano has different stomach and extremities values, so it will lose to the FARA in those cases because the FARA has the same chest, stomach, and extremities across the board. So if you miss chest shots, the FARA is going to kill faster at range, but the Milano is still ridiculously versatile. I love it. I love using it. I use it with like a ghost loadout. I can get a Milano and a Strela, and it just works. It works super well. It's a great loadout. So let's go to the Groza. So the Groza is in between the two, the C58 and the FARA. Recoil wise, I'd say it's still a little bit harder to control than the FARA, so I can't really recommend it for long range. It's not a bad option, but it's harder to control than both the C58 and the FARA, so it has worse TTKs than the FARA. little bit better than the C58, but I think it's just better to use a FARA in most cases for long range. Look at the QBZ. QBZ is actually in a really good spot right now. The TTKs for chest shots come close to the FARA. It's going to be a little slower on stomach and extremities because it does have a different damage profile for those, unlike the FARA. But it has basically no recoil. I'd say it has better recoil than the FARA for sure. So if you're looking for ultimate low recoil options, I'll turn the Krig on here as well. I think QBZ and Krig are the two ways to go if you're someone who just likes guns with no recoil. They're both decent in terms of TTK, but they have extremely, extremely low recoil, very easy to control. Overall, QBZ has better mobility than the Krig. I don't know. I don't know if I can pick one over the other. They're both just really good options now. I think QBZ is a solid sniper support too. I'll be doing a sniper support video in the next couple days. Let's look at put the Bruin on here. So the Bruin, again, I'm just looking at chest shots because I don't want to make a 40-minute long video, but I'm trying to mention when they have different values for chest, stomach, and extremities. In this case, the Bruin kills faster than the C58 out at range, but slower than the FARA. Again, I just don't see a whole lot of reason to use the Bruin over the FARA. If you want the absolute best loadout, I just don't see a lot of reason to use the Bruin over the FARA for mobility reasons, TTK reasons, recoil. I think the FARA even has better recoil than the Bruin at this point. Back in the day, maybe not, but currently I do think it has better recoil. Let's talk about the Cold War AK. So back in the day, the Cold War AK was in a unique spot because it was really hard to use. It had really difficult recoil, but it killed really fast if you hit those chest shots, and it actually had decent chest shot forgiveness. I had old videos on that if you want to go back and check those out. But in this patch, they completely removed the chest multiplier, and now it has worse TTKs than the FARA at range, which makes no sense to me because it basically just made it useless. There's no reason to use the Cold War AK over the FARA for long range right now. Up close, the pink line, the AK-47 has slightly better TTKs, but not dramatically. It's like literally 8 milliseconds. 8 milliseconds is not worth using that gun over the FARA, given how much better the FARA's recoil is. So I don't know. I'm sad about the current state of the AK. I know a lot of people are still using it as sniper support. Again, I'll make a video on this, but I just think the Milano is a better sniper support in every way currently. I don't see a whole lot of reason to use the AK. Let's look at the M4A1. So this is one that I talked about in my very first video about this patch. I thought the M4 might sneak into the meta. I think I was a little bit wrong about that. There were so many changes that I didn't have a full handle on what was going on, but the M4 has pretty bad TTKs up close compared to the FARA specifically, slightly worse than the C58. You're going to have much worse handling with the long-range M4A1 than you will with either the C58 or the FARA, and that's partially because they're Cold War guns, and partially just because they have better handling overall. The M4's TTKs at range, I thought were going to be better than this. They still don't even compete with the FARA, and the FARA's recoil is similar, probably a little easier to control even than the M4. So I don't really think the M4 fits in, even though I thought it would early on. And then the last one up here is the MG82. So the MG82 is kind of... I talked about the AK, how it had really good TTKs, but it was really hard to use. That's kind of where I think the MG82 fits now. It has the best TTKs of pretty much all the long-range options. The Finn with adverse barrel has maybe a little bit better TTKs in some cases, but not all cases. But it's really difficult to use. So if you're looking for something to try to master, to try to give you some sort of advantage, then I think the MG82 might be where it's at. It has great TTKs. The recoil is perfectly straight vertical, so it's not horribly difficult to control. It's just with the nerfs and the changes to it, it has a lot of recoil now, so it is difficult to use at range. And it will take time getting used to, but it has virtually no horizontal bounce, and the recoil is just straight vertical, and it has fantastic TTKs. Because it's a Cold War LMG, and they made it more of like a mid-range LMG, the mobility stats are actually not terrible on it. They're not as good as an AR is going to be, but they're still not terrible. So, closing thoughts, I think C58 and FARA, I think for sure are the meta currently. C58's TTKs look like they're quite a bit worse than the Pharas, but they're really not that much worse. It's like 60 milliseconds or so. And because you have that 4x optic and such low recoil and huge damage per mag, and you can get away with a 45 round mag, which helps your ADS times over the Phara, where you're going to need to use the 60 round mag, and you have better reload times on the C58. C58 just has a lot of things going for it. The Phara will win in TTKs, and I like to use the Phara more than the C58 currently. But they're both great options. And like I said, as far as all these go, I think Krig and QBZ are the low recoil choices. They're both very good. I don't think I can call a winner between those two, but if you're someone who can't really control recoil, or you just don't want to have to control recoil, QBZ or Krig are probably is where it's at. And then if you're someone who's looking for an advantage, TTK advantage with a gun that's difficult to use but could be learned, then I think MG82 is probably your choice. And then as far as all-rounders go, obviously I'm going to be doing a sniper support video and maybe a ghost loadouts video. I still think the Milano is impossible to beat. It has such ridiculously good TTKs, ridiculously good mobility, huge damage per mag. It has great sprint to fire times because it's an SMG. It's just, they said they increased the recoil, but to me it doesn't really feel any different than it did before. I still beam people with it. The one downside is the bad bullet velocity, but you can kind of get around that. It's not a huge deal once you get used to it. So I'll be doing a video on sniper support, but I can tell you right now, Milano is going to be the #1 sniper support still. All right, guys. Well, that was my overall thoughts on the current long-range meta. I think it's in an okay place. I don't love it. I was kind of bored with the Phara. Phara is just really beamy. C58's really beamy. I'd like to see these guns have more recoil. But then if they had more recoil, then it's going to make sniping come in as like easily the correct choice. So we'll see. It's kind of hard to balance a one-shot kill with a sniper with ARs and make it all make sense correctly. So overall, I think it's in a pretty good spot. It's not terrible. Maybe not the best we've ever been, but it's not that far off. So we'll see where they go from here. But thanks again to Legionfarm for sponsoring this video. That was awesome. Be sure to check them out. Use my promo code, use my link. And I'll see you guys on the next video. I'll do some sniper support, some SMG videos in the next few days.